we're diving into MMA. MMA, we still have our gloves. These are official grade MMA gloves used by the Marines. In MMA, the rules are there's similar rules from boxing, but MMA involves boxing, kickboxing / Muay Thai. It involves Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and mainly collegiate, but a little bit of Greco wrestling moves too, as you've probably seen if you watched the UFC fight. So, in MMA, you can strike in boxing, like you do, any part of the body. You typically, with your hand, you don't want to strike like legs or any of that. You're going to hurt yourself more than you're going to hurt your opponent. However, since Muay Thai and kickboxing are used in MMA, you can use leg kicks, any part of the body. Vital spots would be the legs, taking out your opponent's legs, body shots, head shots. Being flexible in the MMA is essential. A lot of high leg kicks are used, so as I'm striking my opponent, say I'm striking on the head or whatever, I can continuously do that until the ref calls it. If the ref can see that your opponent is clearly not blocking anymore or gets knocked unconscious to save the fighter. Now I can strike here, and if that doesn't work, I can go into a wrestling mode, more collegiate wrestling style, go for the legs, or I can go for upper body throws, which we're seeing at the creation of UFC, but mainly now you really see collegiate wrestling moves using it to take an opponent down. You want to keep your hips up so your opponent can't flip you over. If your opponent flips you over, they can start striking you on the face. Then you have to cover your face. Now, if I get my opponent down, I can hit him in the face, I can hit him wherever I want. Now, another way to claim a victory in the MMA is taking your opponent down by straight submission. But there are millions of ways to do this. Your opponent, so in MMA, the last and final way you can take an opponent down is straight submission. This submission could be an arm bar, a leg bar, any kind of bar. In the MMA, you can choke your opponent out in different ways. Here. I can choke my opponent out until they tap or they go unconscious if they don't tap. So we'll start off with a leg bar here. A leg bar is used in submission, like I just said. And a leg bar consists of trapping the opponent's leg. You want to squeeze hard at the base down here. You also want to squeeze up top. And you want to do it until you hurt your opponent too much and they just tap and ref calls. Now, there's an arm bar, which is the exact same thing. I can use an arm bar with just my arms, or I can go with my legs. An arm bar is more dangerous than a leg bar simply because if your opponent doesn't tap, you can dislocate their arm, you can break it, you can snap it. But usually... So in MMA, or UFC style combat, weight cutting is... So in weight cutting for the MMA, a lot of similar things are used in wrestling, but the period of weight cut most times is way shorter than you'd see in wrestling. I mean, I'd be using the same equipment, but when I'm weight cutting, for MMA, most MMA fighters bulk up a lot, drink a lot of water before the week of weigh-ins. That's called flush week. So flush week starts with the first day, you drink 2.5 liters of water, go through your training regimen, whatever. The second day, you drop down to 1.5 liters. Now, after you drop down to 1.5 liters, you'll go to the third day, and you'll do the same. You don't want to go down too much water because that can ultimately hurt a fighter's body too much. Then, on the fourth day, we go to 1 liter of water. Now comes the fifth day, we go down to 0.25 of a liter of water. Now, after that, we have our day of weigh-ins. Weigh-ins, there is no water, no food, none of that, constant sweat. And it's called the flush period because after you do all of these days, your body urinates a lot. More than every 30 minutes, you have to go to the bathroom. Your body is just constantly flushing out this water. But you can only do that if, when you're drinking water, you stay away from a lot of sodium. either in different drinks, different hydration drinks, and foods. You keep a nice constant balanced diet. You're eating healthy, you're eating your fibers. If you don't do this, a lot of fighters will either not make weight or they will be too ill to fight, and the fight it'll end up resulting in a forfeit for a fighter. We just talked about the style of weight cutting that most MMA fighters use. But when we talk about weight classes, there are different rules for almost each individual weight class. There are 13 weight classes. I believe it goes all the way up to 250 pounds is our ending, and starts at 115 pounds. But a lot of the changes in the rules for these weight classes you'll see at lighter fights. Now, I won't talk about every single weight class. I'll talk about the most important ones. So we'll start off with 115 pounds. A 115 pound MMA fighter can come into weigh-in and have a 1 pound leeway. That means like plus 1 pound. So they can come in and they can weigh at 116, no more than 116, and they can weigh anything below. But you jump into our next weight class, 125 pounds, and that changes. Every fighter, no matter championship title, regular bout, has to make 125 pounds lighter, no heavier. But when we jump into 135 pounds, you will see that a fighter gets their 1 pound leeway back so they can weigh 136 pounds. But that is only in regular season matches. And that, meaning that a championship title match, a fighter has to weigh in at the exact weight. So they have to be 135 pounds lighter or as heavy, no heavier. And the consequences of not making weight can either be a rescheduling of a fight in regular season matches, a forfeit of a fight that can cost you your match entirely. But in a championship title match or in a regular season match, if both fighters to agree to have this fight and the fighter that missed weight wins it, it does not count. They don't get the new title. They don't get the win. It's a reschedule of that exact fight with the two same fighters, and they have to make the exact weight.